But today we're going to talk about test creation, customizing the test for students before they actually open it up, devices that I can use to take my test on, security features that we might want to put into a test, and also distributing and collecting a test once it's done. So to begin with, when we look at Kurzweil 3000, we're talking about both the installed and the web client. Kurzweil 3000 provides, one, a flexible environment accessible on all devices. And that means I can take a test on my iPad. I can use a Chromebook, a Mac, a PC. I could use an Android tablet. If I wanted to, I could also use it on a phone because remember, you still do have pinch and zoom on phones. So even though you might think, how am I going to take a test on that little dinky cell phone screen? You can still pinch and zoom, and you can use all the features to take a test. We have customizable user preferences providing accessibility, and this is per user because one user may need something like Zoom features set for them. Another user may be tweaking the audio preferences, and all the preferences within the program are customizable per user. And the nice thing is the preferences follow you from platform to platform. We have customizable locked features for testing. So if I need to set certain features that are not allowed on a test, we can do that in multiple places, and we'll take a look at some of those. We've got multiple options for both distributing a test and also multiple options for collecting that test after the student has taken it. So to begin with, let's take a look at customizing the testing environment. And this is really from the student's perspective. I'm going to take a test, and what are some of the things I need before I even open up that test? This is kind of setting up the environment, which is really, really important before the student even opens up the test. Matter of fact, they should be tweaking and using these features, reading and writing and all kinds of other things in the program before they open up a test, so they're familiar with the components, they're familiar with the program, and they're familiar with the environment that they're going to be taking the test in. An example is I've gone to the Tools menu and Options on the image on the left, and you see that I can set options for the highlighting color when it's reading text-to-speech. I can set options for the default text width or the zoom settings. For example, if I need every page magnified 300% for me, I can set this in my own user preferences. So every page I open will be at 300% zoom. So I don't have to be looking around for that, make the screen larger, 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 or smaller. I can set settings for the reading. What voice am I using? I can customize all these things in here. And I can also customize things like the markings on the highlighters telling me which highlighter I should be using, for example, for which option. All these settings I can choose. Now this, I might set at, I want to choose the voice that I use, and I want to set the words per minute that I use. But also equally important is if I'm thinking of a test-taking situation, I don't want anything read continuously. I don't want to click on question number 1 and hit the read button, and then suddenly it's down to question number 2, and I'm reaching up with my mouse trying to click on the pause button. And this is where we can customize the reading unit. And this can be changed all during the test, remember. For example, a default might be continuous in sentence. So it's going to read a sentence, highlight it, and then move on to the next one, keep on reading it. Instead, I might want to set it on self-paced in sentence. Now, when I click on the read button, it's going to read the sentence and stop. And it's going to allow me to answer the question. Hitting the read button would go on to the next question, read it, and then stop. If I had set it on the reading unit to line, it would read a line. And why would I do that? Perhaps I have questions where the sun is a blank, and I have a fill in the blank there, but I don't have any punctuation at the end of the line. Well, the program would keep on reading till it found some punctuation, telling it it was the end of the sentence. So I kind of look at the test. What are the question marks at the end of each question? I'll set it to sentence. If not, maybe I'll set it to line. I can customize the toolbars, and I can also add and remove buttons. Now, you might think customizing the toolbar might be a security feature, but think of the students that the environment is way too busy, and by simply removing buttons from the toolbar and just leaving the buttons on this toolbar that I need, I don't have to worry about clicking on the wrong things. I'm not overwhelmed with all these different buttons on the toolbar. And you can see here, I can right-click on the toolbar and load a specific toolbar set, or I can right-click on a button and delete buttons off that toolbar. Even though I've deleted them, all I have to do is reload the toolbar later on to get the default toolbar set back up here. So think of customizing that toolbar not only from a security feature if I want to lock certain buttons off of that toolbar, but also cleaning up the environment for the students so they have a much easier environment to work within. I can customize the visual settings, not only the zoom features, but I could change the background color. For example, if this was a locked document and it was a test, I can still change the background color. So maybe I've got black text on a blue background or black text on a red background. And I can also use a feature what's called magnify the spoken word if I need to. So every word that it reads aloud, I can have a little window where it's magnifying it for me. There are a lot of different options for student response. One, we can have text notes on the pages where I've got a fill in the blank line, and I might have gone to the tools menu and chosen fill in the blanks and let the program put a text note on every single line it sees. Or I can manually add a text note just to put in a place for the student to be able to just simply click and answer. The student has the ability to use highlighters and circle tools to circle the correct answer. For example, it's a multiple choice test. I can go to the highlighters toolbar, and I've got multiple colors of highlighters I can use to highlight the correct answer. Maybe I'm going to use the cross-off tool on that toolbar. The cross-off answers that I don't think are correct. You know, no, I don't think it's that. No, I don't think it's that. And then maybe get the circle tool and circle the correct answer. We have the ability to put voice notes on locked documents. Now, this could be a teacher option where I'm going to put directions for the students on the test. Read question number 5, answer it with 5 complete sentences, or once you get to the end of the page, stop, turn your test over and wait for instructions on the next component or whatever. But a student could also record audio responses to answer instead of having to handwrite. So imagine a student who has difficulty handwriting or difficulty typing. I can simply use a voice note and record my response. And then you could open it up later, listen to their responses. No question on how the student answered now, especially if you have someone scribing the answers for the student. And a feature that is not used as often as it should be is bubble notes. And this makes it really easy for the students to respond. Bubble notes, we can get to from the notes menu, adding bubble notes. These are pop-ups where I put the question in, and it's a simple selection, true or false. Or it's a multiple choice. Is it the Earth is a what? Star, planet, or moon? And only one can be correct. Or I can create a bubble note with choose all that apply. It pops up. It'll read aloud the question. I can make my selections and then save. I can even have matching in a bubble note. Here, I've simply labeled it as a matching exercise, and I'm just going to connect the lines. And once I use my mouse, I point to the line, and I can drag the line down to connect the word with the definition. So once again, setting up the environment for the student, I could have a sheet numbered 1 through 10, save it as a locked document, and simply add bubble notes on next to every number with a different question. Teachers have the ability to scan print materials into the program. So if I have a paper test that I've used before, I can simply scan it in. It becomes a locked document, which I can then customize. I can click and create using cameras on cell phones or tablets. For example, I could go to my iPad I can log into Kurzweil 3000. I can click on the camera folder, the computer folder rather, in the upper right. And once I do on a tablet or a phone, it brings up the ability for me to take a picture. So I've got the test sitting in front of me on the table, stand up, take a picture of the test. It processes it. It brings it into Kurzweil 3000. I can rotate it. I can do anything I need to. And then perhaps I save it into a public folder and allow my students to go ahead and open it. I can utilize previously created content, for example, in Microsoft Word. I've got all these quizzes that I've created over the years. I simply open it up, and I can do either a virtual print from Kurzweil from Microsoft Word, or I can simply save the quiz as a PDF and then open it up in Kurzweil, and now I have a locked document. Remember, in Kurzweil, you have the ability to work with multiple file formats. I can bring in PDF files, TIFF files, DLC or DLCX, the Microsoft Word file formats. I can bring in text files, and I can bring in DAISY files. So if I've got other files that I have tests out there, I can simply open them in and then go ahead and edit the content, add text notes, add directions, things like that. Remember, we have the ability to differentiate materials for different students. One of the things I can do on a test is set what's called a silent reading zone. So I open up the test that we're going to give to students, and I go to Zone Editor. And then in Zone Editor, I right-click on a zone, and I can set a specific zone for silent reading. An example might be the directions are allowed to be read aloud to the students, but the question is not. Or the reading passage is not allowed to be read aloud to the student, but the questions are, because we want to determine the student's reading ability or whatever. So we can set the zone to silent, and what happens is it'll highlight the words as if it were reading, but you don't have any sound output. We can take some content and literally white out content on that document. An example is I bring in a document, and there's something in the lower right, or there's an image on the upper right that I don't want students to be able to see. It could be a logo or something. There are tools allowing me to go and select that and literally white it out so you do not see it without having to go to a program like Adobe Acrobat Pro to delete the content out. We can do what's called edit the underlying text. So if something's not being pronounced properly, it's easy to go in and fix. And like I mentioned earlier, we can go into and add voice and recorded instructions using voice notes. Teachers also have the ability to create locked content. So when it comes to locking features in a test, we have the ability to, one, via machine, what's called machine locks. This could be for everybody who sits at this particular computer. Okay, let's say I had one computer or two or three computers in my classroom, and it's testing day. So I can set machine locks for whoever sits there for whatever document they open. For example, that they're not allowed to use the dictionary, they're not allowed to use word prediction, they're not allowed to, go to the web. I can go in and set specific machine locks and then password protect those settings. So anybody who sits there now and logs in and opens up a quiz, word prediction is grayed out, dictionary buttons are grayed out. I could, depends on what features I want to be grayed out. And it doesn't matter who logs in. It's not like, well, I can use it. Nope, anybody who sits at that machine, I don't have to worry about, what they're allowed and what they're not allowed. I could go to the web and go to the web app and go into my users, and then I can set what's called feature locks. And I can look at my users, and I have specific feature locks that all I need to do is I've got Sally and Jimmy and Johnny here. They're my three students. And I go, let's see, Sally is not allowed to use word prediction, but Jimmy is and Johnny is for this this specific test. But Sally is not allowed to use and click, and I can simply click those and save those feature locks. And now, whether the student goes to the web app or they go into the installed version, those features are locked out for whatever document they open until I go back into the feature locks and uncheck those settings and save those settings there. I can even lock access to the local drive or to Google Drive, so they can't open or save anything to the hard drive, and they can't open or save anything to Google Drive. There's also document settings. And with a document setting, I don't have to worry about who's going to open it, and I don't have to worry about where they're going to open it, because I can set, for example, a password for opening the document. So I could put it in my folder. Students can't open the quiz or the test until I hand out the password. So they come into my room, all the students are ready to go. I tell them, go ahead and open it. They're all waiting for the password. They go ahead and type it in, and they're ready to go. If a student does not finish a test, I can be sitting here, and once they've saved and closed the test, I can open it from their folder, and I can change the password and resave it so they cannot open it until they come back into my room, my lab, to continue working on the quiz or the test. Okay? I also have the ability to lock copying or printing the test. So I don't have to worry about the student, oh, I'll just copy it and paste it somewhere else, you know. And we can also save test-taking toolbars. Remember I told you we could customize the toolbar buttons and things? Well, we can customize that, and what happens is when the student opens the document, buttons on the toolbars are grayed out. And the nice thing with this, and it's all saved with a password, whoever opens this document, all of these features will be locked for them now. So I don't have to worry about setting a machine lock. Well, I don't want to lock the machine today because someone's going to take a test in the morning, but kids are coming in later on and need to use it for access. And then I've got a couple kids later, and I don't want to get into locking and unlocking machine locks. So I set it all in the document. I set all these locks. I go to my document settings and check off a few things, put in a password and save it. I'll get a prompt letting me know what's going on. And now I don't have to worry when time to distribute the test, students that open it up, and those locks fall into place. When it comes to distributing tests, now that I've got all these features in, my students know what they're going to use, they get the voice set, everything else. One of the easiest ways to distribute not only tests, but files in general in Kurzweil is using the copy to multiple options. And this can be done from both the installed and the web app. Okay? And here is an example where I've gone and I've selected a file that resides in my folder. I go to the copy option on screen, and I choose copy to multiple. And what it does is it brings up a list of my students. From here, I could simply tell it to copy it to all my students' private folders, or I could tell the program to create a folder in their private folder, and perhaps I call that folder today's test, and I tell it to put a folder called today's test in all my students' private folders and put this file in it. And I click copy, and it sends it to all those students. And now I say, and go to your folders, open up your test. Or I look at the list of all my students, and I can pick and choose. I can say these 3 students get this test and send it off. And then I can go select another file and choose copy to multiple. And then I can choose this student and this student get an alternate version of the test and shoot it off to them. And I can be doing this all from a laptop. I can do it from a computer. I could be sitting on my iPad making these options. And then off it goes. Now, remember, I can also simply put a copy of the test in my public folder and tell all the students that I've added to my roster, simply go to my public folder, open up the test. All the students get a copy of the test. They can open up a copy. Depending on those security settings I set, maybe the only place they can save it is in their folder in the Universal Library. Or I can put in a shared folder in Google Drive. Maybe we use Google Drive for classroom storage, and my students are used to working with shared folders. So I simply put it there, and the students from either environment have the option to simply go to Google Drive and open up the test from there. So once the student has the test, they can take it on any device that is connected to the internet. I can open up my iPhone and go and take that test. I could go to a Chromebook and take that test. I can open up an Android tablet and take that test. I can use a Mac or PC and take that test. So whatever the device you have, we can utilize to take the test. And it's nice if I've got a classroom where I've got a mix of devices. Let's say I have a couple iPads, I've got a Chromebook, and I've got 3 or 4 older laptops and a desktop. All my students can now grab any device and log in and take the test. So once the student has taken the test, how do I collect it? Okay, there's a couple different ways I can collect the test. I can simply go to the student's folder, select the test, and choose Move, and move the file from the student's folder, and then Move will say, where would you like to move it to? And then I could choose my own folder as a teacher, and perhaps I have a folder set up called Collect a Test. Maybe I have subfolders, Collect a Test from period 1, Collect a Test from period 2. Select the folder, and it'll actually remove it from the student's folder and put it into my folder, kind of like collecting a test in class. I can make a copy of the test into my folder. I could go to the student's folder, select the test, choose copy instead, and go to my folder and paste it, leaving the student with a copy of the test. We can have students simply print out the test and hand it in, just like all the other students. And I can simply open the test from the student's folder, grade it, and save a copy. Now they have the test with a grade on it, and I have a copy of it with a grade on it. So all I need to do is simply go to their folder, double-click on it, open it up. I go through the test. Maybe I'm using highlighters to mark things. Maybe I'm using a text note to type notes on it. I save it. It goes right back to their folder, and I choose it, and I choose copy and send a copy to myself. Now they have the grade, and I have a copy of the test also. So multiple ways of how am I going to get the test? I can simply click, move it out of their folder. They don't have it. I could copy it and paste a copy into my folder. Students can print it, or I can simply open it up, look at it, grade it, either jot down a grade and save it back to their folder, or save a copy of it after it's been graded to my folder. So what are some of the takeaways? When we're using Kurzweil, we can customize the accommodations on any device for the student when it comes to the test-taking experience. You know, what color background do I need? What highlighting do I need? How about the voice? And the voice and the speed and all these little features I can customize. I have multiple options for test creation and security locks. I can, lock the features in that test, from locking toolbar buttons to locking the ability to print, to locking the ability to go to Google Drive, or even save it to the computer I'm sitting at. And then I have multiple options for distributing the test and multiple options for collecting the test. Am I in a large environment where I've got 30 students that I need to manage, or am I in a classroom, self-contained, where I've got 1 or 2 students that are sitting at a computer and we're going to simply do an open and print and hand in? But I have all of these options. So, in conclusion, your devices are solutions, no barriers, no boundaries, because whatever you have, we can go online and we can import, we can customize, we can create, we can distribute, and it comes to the students. Whatever they have, they can open, they can test, they have access features, and then hand in. So I'm going to conclude here. I hope you got a good idea of some of the options that we have in Kurzweil. Just to point out, we have a new test preparation and test taking hands-on workshop. You email the company and we can set up webinars or hands-on. And I'm just looking at the chat window to see if we have any questions that you might have at the end of today's session. Hopefully you've got an idea that, oh my God, there's a lot of things we can do when it comes to test taking.
Again, yeah, and Dan, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can, Lynn.
Great. Sorry, everyone, for the audio issues in the beginning of the webinar. But we did record it, and we'll send you a recording of today's webinar, too. At that time, you can respond to that email and let us know if you have any specific questions about test taking online, offline, or any which way that you need to do it. And we'll send you additional information on that specific workshop that Dan actually put together, in addition, or in coordination with Sarah, our training coordinator. And if you really need specific and one-on-one assistance with test taking. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dan. I appreciate it. You're definitely the guru when it comes to most technology. So I think it's just great that we can work on so many different types of technologies, and there's so many different tests. So I appreciate you taking the time today to walk through those kind of top line steps.
Okay. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you.
Okay, and you can close out whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Have a good day, everyone, and we'll hopefully see you again soon. All right, ciao.